Welcome to SuperTalk, the podcast that scratches your superhero itch. Just two suburban dads nerding out over superhero stuff on the small screen and the big. Buckle up, people. Enjoy the ride.
Welcome to SuperTalk, the weekly podcast dedicated to news and reviews of comic book media on the big and small screen. This is episode 155.
Whoa.
I'm your host, Brian Professor Medicine. With me, as always, my illustrious co-host, Titanium Tony Estrella.
Professor, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. We're
Good.
We're back.
Yeah.
We got a few things to hammer out today. Got a new show. We got another new show starting tomorrow. We got a trailer that dropped this couple days ago. We've got a movie coming out next week. So we'll get into all of it.
We'll be seated for that movie.
Yeah.
We got tickets for Thursday night. It'll be fun.
We're gonna go see it, and
We'll talk a little bit about it.
Yeah.
Are you excited?
I'm concerned. I don't know. I'm a little scared.
Wow, concerned is a great word. I'm fucking terrified. This because we'll get into it, but remind the audience my reaction at Comic-Con sitting in Hall H.
Oh yeah,
when we saw that footage. So
yeah,
we'll get into that.
We'll have a good chat about that. But first we'll jump into the reviews, and we did have a new show hit the wire last week. Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, a new animated feature by Marvel Animation on Disney Plus. And I had my first
Spit it out.
I'm going to be honest.
Of course you are.
I'm going to be honest about my feelings on this show, and I
knowing what a huge Spider-Man fan you are.
Yeah, I mean, he's easily top 3 most popular comic book hero of all time
in the world.
And you can put him up there: Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Wolverine, easily the top 4. Put him in whatever order you want. Those are the top 4 out there, and he's an incredibly valuable piece of intellectual property for Sony Entertainment. Marvel has the rights to do anything they want to with him on TV, which is why they created this show. You see the sharing agreement between Sony and Marvel, so Tom Holland can be in the movies. That's how popular this character is.
Yeah.
I mean, we have had 8 major motion pictures with Spider-Man as the lead character, not considering the animated ones that are another 2, with another one coming here shortly.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a huge character. And again, I'm a enormous fan. I mean, I love Spider-Man. He's one of my favorite characters. So I literally, after I watched the show, while I was watching the show, I was a little bit angry. I won't say angry. I was just disappointed with what they decided to do with this character that I love so much. And part of that, I really did some introspection. I kind of looked myself in the mirror and said, okay, let's really think about this.
Right.
Part of it is I really have strong feelings about them staying true to the character from the comic books that I know and love and read, for decades.
Sure, the source material.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And if in all honesty, if I take a step back and say, what if they decided to just do a new, fresh take on the character Spider-Man and just said, we're going to start from scratch and tell this story about this character that you may be familiar with, but we're going to tell it a little bit of a different way.
Yeah.
And when I think about it like that, I'm okay with what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because so much of what they're doing is going against the grain of what has been in the comics. And you and I've been a little bit, we know that there's been a huge move in the industry with specific companies, especially for diversity.
Mm-hmm.
Diversity in characters, diversity in color, diversity in everything. And you and I have been very strongly opinionated in that if you want more diversity, then write good characters that are diverse that people should care about.
Correct.
Don't take the characters that we already know and love that have been written for decades and diversify them.
Correct.
Which is what we've seen a lot of.
Yep.
And so my initial reaction when I watched the show was, Okay,
I'm tracking what you're saying. I'm tracking it.
the only white characters in the show are Spider-Man,
Mhm.
Aunt May, and the criminals. Oh, and Doctor Strange was white. He was also a white character.
Yeah.
And the bad guys, like every criminal was white, which was kind of weird. But every one of the other students at the school, every one of his friends, everybody else is of color.
Hmm.
And again, when I step back and say, okay, that's totally not the way the comics were. And maybe, in all honesty, back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, when these comics were very popular and being written, there was a tinge of racism. And there was a, writing to a specific audience, which was the ones that were buying the comics, which happened to be, mostly white. And I get that.
Mhm.
And so maybe they're saying, we're trying to write this story for a broader audience. And when I looked at it that way, I'm like, okay, I get it. They race swapped Norman Osborn and
Mhm.
Harry Osborn, which again, I have fundamentally have a problem with. But when I look at it broadly, okay, this could work,
Mhm.
right? And again, we've talked about this before with Samuel L. Jackson playing Nick Fury. There was some precedent there in that in the Ultimate Comics, Nick Fury was African American. So like
Right.
there was that's who that character was based on primarily, or that version of the character. Um, so I didn't necessarily have a problem with that. And I think again, when I looked at it and said, okay, what if they're just trying to retell the Spider-Man story their own way in a new modern twist to the story that we've known for
Yeah.
decades. And again, this does take place in an alternate universe.
Correct.
This is not the MCU.
Nope.
This is an alternate universe that happens to have the character Spider-Man in it.
Yeah.
So anything's game. Fantastic. And as a matter of fact, we saw a lot of diversions from his origin story. The way he got the spider bite,
Yeah.
totally different.
Completely.
Came from another dimension.
Mhm.
Actually came Venom, the symbiote, came from this other dimension that Doctor Strange was fighting, and that spider came from that same dimensional portal that Venom dropped down through, and happened to be the one that bit Peter.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe they're doing a new take on the story. I'll say I'm a little less angry than I was. But one of the things that happened in the show, so I don't know if you want
Dr.
to,
Connor being a female Hispanic woman.
yeah, again, you want to retell the story with familiar characters, but a new twist or a new take on those familiar
all right with
characters.
that.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Dr. Connor's and they had Amadeus Cho in the show,
Yep.
who ends up becoming a
Hulk.
Hulkling.
Mhm.
But I'm okay with what they're doing now, that I kind of look at it a little bit differently. Took off the
How about I feel that there is a very strong into the Spider-Verse kind of vibe to it. And I feel like they're trying to pull some of the popularity from that Miles
a little bit.
Morales, different animation style,
Yeah,
different story, obviously,
that.
different Spider-Man. They try to pull that into it to make it a little bit more modern, a little bit hip, even with the music and
Definitely.
everything like that.
Definitely. And then again, that's where I kind of like,
But Miles Morales, and by the way, one of my absolute top animated shows is the Miles Morales stories
the
in the
Spider-Verse
into the
movie, yeah.
Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
Absolutely love that. And I felt like they tried to copy and pull a little bit of that popularity into this, which I don't think was the right thing to do, but continue, Professor.
Maybe a little
I'm
bit.
tracking what you're saying.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of the characters that they chose to feature in the show were not main featured characters in the original Spider-Man comics. Like, they chose to feature, I can't remember the football player's name now.
Flash
No, but
from the original.
The original's Flash Thompson, but the one that they have in the animated, Jordan Jefferson or something like that.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of these characters are comic book characters from more modern times.
Right.
Like they're not from back in the 60s and 70s. They're now more recent additions to the comics. And there are some Easter eggs in the show that a lot of these characters do end up turning into heroes or villains in the
yeah.
future. So there is some of that going on, but again, the one thing, and I've harped
I
on
know
this.
what you're gonna say.
I've harped on this.
I know what you're gonna say because
So
at the end of that movie, you blew up and was so pissed.
at the end of the movie,
At the end of
the second episode,
No Way, not No Way Home, the one where they were overseas,
oh, Far From
Mysterio,
Home.
Far From Home. At the end of Far From Home, I know what you're gonna say.
Yeah, you know, and this has been one of
your biggest pet peeves.
it's a big pet peeve of mine, and so much so that when they fixed it in the MCU, I was so happy. You know, so Spider-Man, his secret identity is sacred. And literally, you can count the number of people that know he's Spider-Man on literally like one hand, less than one hand. For decades. Aunt May didn't even know he was Spider-Man.
Right.
For decades.
Right.
She was oblivious to the entire fact that he was Spider-Man, and he hid it from her successfully.
It's one of the traits
Mary
that makes
Jane-
Spider-Man Spider-Man.
Obviously, once Mary Jane and he, you know, were in a relationship, it became harder and harder for him to hide it from her. And then they ultimately ended up getting married, and then it was impossible for him to hide it from her. So she knew. But nobody else did. And part of the reason for that was twofold. One, he knew that the only way to keep the people he loved safe was to keep his identity secret. Because the minute that people knew who he was, he would be putting everybody in danger because they would try to get to him through them. And that's why his identity was so secret. As a matter of fact, in Secret Wars, when he gets the black costume from this alien machine on Battle World, his costume was in tatters, but his face was still being covered, but the rest of his costume was all ripped up from the battles he was having and needed a new costume. And literally, he went in there, nobody saw him because I got to do this by myself. Like his identity, even when he's on the Avengers, nobody knew who the heck he was. Yeah. So again, that's one of the things that's always been, you know, when Tom Holland's version of Spider-Man literally was introduced to the MCU, Tony Stark walks into his house and shows him videos of himself. And I'm like,
bust him. Then Hoppy knows. Yeah.
Now so that's one thing. In the end of the second episode of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man,
Harry Osborn
basically says, "Oh, so you're Spider-Man." And I'm like, they're doing it again. And so again, at the end of Spider-Man No Way Home, when Doctor Strange was able to reverse the spell and make sure that nobody knows who he is anymore, and he has to go live by himself because everybody's forgotten that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. I was like, thank God.
Yeah.
We're back.
Right.
We're where we need to be.
It's one of those attributes for that hero that's so important and key. It makes, I think, it's like a character indicator that makes the character who he is.
Well, but since he's a street level hero, lives with his aunt, well, yeah. Well, in the comics for a long time, but it's not like he's living in Avengers Mansion or the Baxter Building, or he's not part of a team. He's all by himself. And so, and again, he's swinging through the neighborhoods and catching common criminals. That's the kind of hero that he is. His identity was so important, you know, to keep that secret. And again, there's reasons behind it. So when they did it on this show, I was like, not again.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to give you another take on this. Back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and 80s, and even into most of the 90s, you didn't have cell phones. You didn't have cameras everywhere. You didn't have anything. You could get away with everything, and there wasn't a picture on it the next day that you could see on the internet. We now have the internet. Everybody has a camera on their phone. It would be virtually impossible to maintain your secret identity, especially if you're running into alleyways, changing into your costume so you can go catch a criminal. It'd be impossible nowadays to do that because there's a camera in that alleyway, or somebody's going to snap a photo and put it on the internet.
Right.
So
unless
maybe
with a flash.
Maybe, yeah.
Right.
Maybe that's the take they're doing now. Again, a more modern version of the story is that in today's age, it would be impossible to have a secret identity.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what they're doing. And hopefully they explain that a little bit. But that was one of the things that just always bothered me about everything. Like, if you remember that scene And Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, I think it was Spider-Man 2, the one with Doc Ock, where the scene where he's like the train is speeding down the track and he has to use his webs and hold the train back.
Right.
And his mask is completely off, and they pull him in after he saved everybody. He's just a kid.
Right.
Everybody in the world now knows who he is.
Right.
And I was like, oh, it's just like shuddering. Like this wouldn't happen, or shouldn't happen. But anyway, that's more of a personal take on this.
So what do you think of the show, bottom line?
Again, when I first watched it, I was just like, oh my God, more of the just same old thing we've seen from Disney. And I'm like, I'm over it. And then the secret identity thing just put me over the edge. And then I sat back and said, okay, I'm going to walk into this with a completely new perspective and say, what if they're trying to retell this story about the character that we love in a new way, in a modern telling of it, with
In a
a
different
brand new
universe.
story in a totally different universe? It's not going to affect anything we're doing here. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to give it a chance.
Yeah.
Because I do love the character so much. And there were some cool parts of the show that were fun
Yeah.
to watch, right?
Mhm.
And it really does. I did like the fact that they were going into how much of a geek he is and how much he loves science and how much he wants to be a scientist. And that's his real passion. And people forget the reason why he has web fluid is because he invented it, because he's a smart ass kid.
Yeah.
So I'm glad they're doing that in the show. The whole
It is Spider-Man.
the
So-
girlfriend thing, kind of like the girl who he's obsessed with used to be his babysitter, and she's like 3 years older than him.
Yeah.
Like, what freshman in high school is going to have a crush on a senior and expect for them to go out?
Expect for them to go out, all of them, because freshmen are dumb. But yeah, I get that.
That was one of the things
Yeah.
that I'm like, didn't I used to come over and watch you while your parents were out? Da, 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 da. And I'm like, wait a minute, she's like 3 years older than me?
When you're a freshman in high school, you have a
3
crush on
years.
older girls.
Right. But
But
in
it's
high
never
school,
gonna happen.
3 years is huge.
Yeah, it is.
When you're an adult, 3 years is nothing. But when in high school, 3 years, I mean, I don't know about you, but I remember when I was a senior in high school, walking into school the first day, seeing all the freshmen going, damn, there's some small kids in this school.
Yeah, little
I
young.
couldn't believe how small everybody
And
was,
little,
you know?
I get it.
So anyway, that was another thing that kind of got me. But overall, again, I love the character. I'll watch it just because I love the character, and I hope they tell some good stories with some good. And I do like some of the new takes they're taking on some of the characters, and it does seem like there's going to be a lot of cameos from a lot of different Marvel characters.
One of my favorite things about this show is that they are pulling in different characters like Cho and some other different characters that we're going to see down the line, hopefully, and reveal.
Yeah, we know Daredevil's going to be in it.
They're pulling a lot, and we already got Doctor Strange, which was kind of cool. So
I'm looking forward to that.
Me too,
because that's something that we've never seen.
But we discussed the latest episode. It's not like we woke up early this morning and watched the latest episode. It wasn't like we ran home after work and the first thing you do while you're eating dinner is watch that episode or
right.
I'll get to it when I get to it. It's one of those shows.
Yes.
I'll get to it when I get to it.
It's not a must watch or a must, or, oh my God.
I'm not on the edge of my seat saying like we will be with Invincible.
Right.
Like every episode, I'm going to be like, oh, when is it? When is it? Stop. When does it come out?
Yeah.
Or Daredevil. Speaking of that, this show's not doing any favors to Disney Plus. Did you see the news?
No.
Disney Plus lost 700,000 subscribers in I believe, last quarter.
Yeah.
700,000 subscribers they lost.
You mean all those people that signed up for Agatha all along didn't stay?
I think that's what pushed them out.
Well, in all honesty, there was literally nothing new. I'll say nothing. Very little new on Disney Plus. The only thing new on Disney Plus, the service between Agatha all along and this was the Skeleton Crew show, which had mixed reviews. I think
it'll be interesting to see and follow this if once Daredevil launches,
they'll come back for that,
and the word of mouth gets going. I think a lot of it had to do with no longer password sharing. They did one of those deals. I don't know if there was an increase. There might have been.
There was a price increase. Yeah,
a lot of that could have been.
There was a price increase, and I do think a lot of people sign up for the service for like a free trial or a free month, or they pay for it for a month and then they binge watch whatever they want to watch and then they're out.
Then they're out. Yeah.
Which I think,
Could happen with
that's the
Daredevil.
Netflix model. So and those of you who watch shows on Netflix doesn't drop their shows serially where they do an episode a week.
Yeah.
They just say the new season of the Great British Baking Show is
Yeah.
now on and all 13 episodes are available. Watch them when you can.
Right.
And it doesn't seem to hurt them. They seem to maintain, but they constantly
Content.
have new stuff coming out.
Yeah.
Disney Plus is different in that they're now releasing their series serially, one episode a week, and they have it on, and basically they give it kind of prime time treatment where it's like, this is your show for the next 6 weeks, and then we'll have another one. So this is our show until Daredevil Born Again comes out next month. So it's hard to maintain a subscriber base.
Well,
when
we're
you
gonna
really don't have
keep an eye on it. It'll be very interesting to see if there is a
Daredevil's going to kill it. I think that show. I am so looking forward to that show.
Oh, no question.
That's going to kill it.
Yeah. I mean, even the showrunner has said that, with the Netflix series, this show is way more action,
Yeah.
way more intense, less long, lengthy dialogue.
And guess what? They're able to go rated R with it too, which
Yeah.
they didn't do in Netflix.
Wow. I think that's going to be huge.
Yeah. And so look, the Friend in the Neighborhood Spider-Man, I think I'm giving it a chance. They're already making season 2. So we know that this is going to be multiple seasons, and it's been renewed for season 3. So it's not going anywhere. Again, this is Marvel trying to recoup some of the Spider-Man juice that Sony's been taking away from them.
Yeah. And absolutely destroying.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, look, I'll give it a shot, but again, for me, it's a diversion. It's not must-watch TV. Just like
No. I'm not rushing home to put it on. I'll get to it when I get to it.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to watch it because it's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It's a Spider-Man.
Well, look, I don't know about you, but like back in the 80s and 90s, when the Amazing Spider-Man cartoon was on Saturday mornings, I couldn't wait.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait. Literally.
Yeah.
I set my VCR, and just in case I missed it, but I was up at 9 a.m. to watch it. It was that good. That was the one with Firestar and Iceman.
Oh,
and Spider-Man all together. I mean, it was great.
That was a great show.
Oh, it was awesome. Anyway, all right, let's jump into some news. There's a lot of stuff that's happened here over the last couple weeks. So we were alluding to the fact that Captain America: Brave New World comes out next week. It premieres on Valentine's Day, February 14th.
Oh,
we're actually seeing it the night before on the 13th.
Yep.
And
we'll be seated.
The Marvel marketing engine is 100% behind this movie. There's been a ton of trailers. The rumor is that we're getting another trailer for the Super Bowl. That's the kind of treatment they're giving to this movie. We're supposed to be getting a Captain America: Brave New World and a Thunderbolts trailer for the Super Bowl. How different they are from what we've already seen, nobody knows right now, but we understand that they are going to get Super Bowl spots, which is going to get a ton of eyeballs in front of this.
The marketing behind Captain America: Brave New World is very similar to the marketing behind Deadpool and Wolverine. It is everywhere.
Well, again,
digital,
this is the first movie that's come out since Deadpool and Wolverine.
It is everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, and if anybody tells me that the budget for this film, including marketing, was $180 million, is out of their mind. The marketing alone is $100 million.
Right.
It is everywhere.
What they're doing,
everything is
commercials. They've dropped a ton of trailers. Now, you mentioned to me right before we started recording that there's been a couple of two
more clips from the movie. One is a fight scene with Anthony Mackie, Sam, and this thug fighting in a room. And the choreographed fight is absolutely awful. It was better in the Falcon and Winter Soldier. Some of the fight scenes were better in that TV show. It just looks low budget, low key.
Mm-hmm.
The choreograph is awful. The dialogue is ridiculously stupid. And he's kind of getting his ass kicked at some point. So this is a guy that's supposed to fight the Red Hulk. I mean, come on. And then the other scene is President Ross in a plane, and he's on a bike, and some assistant walks in, and they have some dialogue. and he's supposed to be funny and bantering back and forth, but it's really not. It's kind of cheap, and the dialogue kind of sucks. So I'm really worried. These two clips really, really terrified me.
Didn't raise your confidence level at all.
Not only that, the rumor is that the Red Hulk is only in the film for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So
the
all
scenes
the
that we've seen
are probably the best scenes
for all the entire trailer when President Ross turns into the Red Hulk on the podium stage in front of the White House.
Allegedly.
Are
the only scenes of him in it.
Well, but that scene that we've seen in the trailer of him turning into the Red Hulk while he's at the podium in front of the White House, and then ultimately we see the White House, explode and all kinds of other things, and then we see him and Sam Wilson fighting in front of the cherry blossoms outside of the White House, which actually are not right outside the White House, or pretty far away from the White House for those of us who live in the area. But anyway, that whole scene when they're fighting, where he jumps up and cuts the car in half and all this other stuff, that is, from what we've been told, and again, we don't know any better, that is the 10 minutes that the Red Hulk is in the entire movie.
So all the marketing that they've put out
about
there,
the Red Hulk,
all the marketing,
this
everything,
poster,
everything has been, it was almost like it's a Hulk film. I mean, the way the marketing has gone, everything, all the posters, all the stands, all the digital marketing, everything has been
against the Red Hulk.
And
if it's an hour and 45-minute movie and we get the Red Hulk for 10 minutes out of that hour
allegedly. I'm not going to make anything like we know what's going to happen, but these are the rumors that happen. If that is the case, this movie, the word of mouth on this movie will kill it.
Yeah.
Not only the remarks that Anthony Mackie has made in.
So that was where I was going to go, is that he was doing promotion. I think he was in Japan, or
I think
it was overseas somewhere.
I thought it was in Buenos Aires. I think it was down in
Argentina
somewhere,
or Brazil, one of those two.
St. Paul or
Sao Paulo. So he was down there doing some marketing for the movie.
Yeah.
And somebody asked him a question, what do you think Captain America stands for? And he shoved his massive Captain America boot right into his mouth and said, well, I think Captain America stands for a lot of things, and I don't think America is one of them. And the entire internet just completely crushed him.
Well, not the shills. The shills are defending him with.
Oh, he wasn't. All he was saying is that he was trying to promote the movie outside of America and didn't want people to think it was.
He followed up with, he's an honest. Integrity is important to him. Honesty. It's about a guy that does the right things. He was saying some of the right things, but the fact that he distanced himself
from America
That's
in the name of the character
is a problem.
And that it's a bad thing to be aligned with America.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, and I get that this character was developed when we were at war and the Nazis and that whole thing is no longer
supposed to be a bastion of freedom,
correct,
around the world, and basically idolize and identifies itself with American values.
Yes.
Right. And you can say that
from that.
Say
weird.
Say that the character is based on the American values of, freedom and justice and, personal rights and all kinds of other things, and how we, when the country was established, these are the things. And that's what the character wanted to wanted to fight tyranny around the world. And I think, that's what the character's all about. And he could have just said something like that.
Yeah. You know how I feel about it. He did get crushed. And you know how I feel about Anthony Mackie. I thought when we were in Comic-Con and he came out on stage, his banter with Harrison Ford and the way he acted, I thought he was a clown. And I didn't like him. He put a bad taste in my mouth. I just didn't like him. It has nothing to do with race or anything like that. I just don't like the guy. And the fact that he's Captain America, I've been swallowing that for a while. He's not my Captain America, but I understand where they're going with this, which is fine. But I think the guy's a clown. And I don't like Anthony Mackie.
And then he came out here recently and said, I guess somebody asked him, like, how long are you going to be playing this character? And he goes, well, I think I'm going to be Captain America for the next 10 years.
Okay.
And again, another problem I have here is that Steve Rogers was, and always will be Captain America. As a matter of fact, he died and came back to life like multiple times in the comics and reinvented himself. You know, he was the Nomad character. He was, you know, U.S. agent, and then he ended up being Captain America again. And, you know, there's times when people thought he was dead, and then he ended up not being dead. I mean, this is what happens.
Right.
You know, it happens often, but he's always been Captain America. And at the time that the character of Falcon took over the mantle of Captain America was when he was gone.
Mhm.
And it was, you know, he was honoring him by doing that. And the minute he came back, he gave it up. The
Right.
minute he came back, he
Yeah.
gave it. He's like, I'm not Captain America. I was just, you know, pretending to be while you were gone. But it was temporary. It was a very short period of time. And part of the reason why it was a short period of time is it didn't sell comic books.
No.
It didn't sell comic books.
Well, it's a different world, but I get what you're saying. I just don't like Anthony Mackie. I just and I listen. We're going to go to the movie. We put money down.
But I think he's, you know, I don't want to say I don't like Anthony Mackie.
I don't.
I think he's a great Falcon. He is. I mean, he has been. Look, one of my favorite movies that Marvel ever did, another Russo production, is the Winter Soldier movie, Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
And he was fantastic in that movie.
He was very good in that movie.
He was good in all of the Avengers movies when he played Falcon.
Yeah.
He was great in Infinity War. He was awesome in that. But again, that's where I see that character aligning with the rest of the movie. And as a matter of fact, I liked, even though there was a million holes in the plot of it, I liked Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the series. I liked watching the two of those characters bounce off each other. I thought it was enjoyable. But
I just think when
they're doing so much to promote him as
yeah,
Captain America.
the marketing, I'm telling you, is crazy. It's like they're trying to make this succeed and make the fans love a character
So,
that it's just not
I want to
resonating.
get your opinion on this.
Let me just equate it to this. It's like your favorite movie star. Let's say, I don't know,
Tom Cruise?
Tom Cruise walked out of a movie and he is one of your top A-lister movie stars, and you're infatuated with him. You love all of his work, and he walks out of a movie theater and he walks right by you, and you're like, Mr. Cruise, you're my favorite character. And he goes, don't bother me, kid. You know, if he said something like that to you or something, or did something
Right.
to like brush you off or ignore you or just twist you a little bit, then you don't like him for the rest of your life. At that moment on stage, after Civil War and all the other movies that he was in, Anthony Mackie, for some reason, it tweaked me the wrong way.
I get you. So let me get your opinion on this, because you said this before. How do you think the fight against the Red Hulk ends? Because you and I have talked about this. There is no way. He's not a super soldier. Now,
he even says in a clip,
Steve Rogers with the super soldier serum would have a hard time defeating the Hulk.
They released a new clip where he says, I should have taken the serum.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
so he's not a super soldier.
No.
And he's fighting him. Now he's got a vibranium suit. We've seen that his suit is vibranium.
That's everybody online. That's their big excuse. He's got a Wakanda vibranium suit that absorbs energy and can disperse energy. Iron Man fought Thor, and he just had the Iron Man suit on, and he's a regular person. He didn't have super serum. So this is all the arguments that people are doing.
So how do you think that fight ends?
He dies. He should be killed by the Red Hulk. The Red Hulk should set him on fire and squash him. Yeah, that's how I think.
How do you think it does end?
Oh, I think he comes out defeating the Red Hulk.
How?
I don't know. I don't know.
They said the sun's getting really low.
I have no idea.
He's got to do like talk no jitsu or something, you know, where he just talks him down.
Or
Mr. President, Mr. President.
Or could there be an intervention with another hero?
That would be my only thing, is that somebody else
to be right
that we don't know is in the movie shows up and helps him take him down.
Helps him take him down, or helps turn him back, you know, or
maybe the formula that the leader uses to change him into the Red Hulk wears off, or has a temporary thing or something. But you're right. There's no way the two of them go toe to toe.
No. And if they waste the Red Hulk on this one and done, that's a shame. That's a huge problem.
So that's another question I was going to ask you. Do we think we see or get at least a mention of the Red Hulk in the Thunderbolts movie, because there have been rumors that there is a tie into this movie in the
I hope so.
Thunderbolts.
I think that'd be phenomenal. I think let's talk about the Thunderbolts for a second, or you want to still talk
Sure,
about
sure.
the Thunderbolts for a second? I think
That movie's going to kill it.
I really do. I think it's a sleeper.
Yep.
I think it's the sleeper Marvel movie. I think it might even outdo Captain America with half, maybe less than half of the marketing that Captain America's putting out there. I'm telling you right now,
I think the cast is better.
if they get one person right in that movie, they get one person right, which is Sentry. They get Sentry right in this movie, and we see him in a Super Bowl commercial. Dude, that would be fucking fire.
Well, and again, there's lots of rumors out there, but I think the Sentry character is a one and done. And I think
I
it's
agree
going to
with
be
you.
one and done in this movie.
Explain the Sentry. Just give him a little background on the Sentry.
So the Sentry character itself, Bob, I can't remember his last name, Bob something. He ended up breaking into a house and drinking a super soldier serum that scientists had been working on. And he was homeless at the time and ended up breaking it and ended up
had some mental issues.
Had some, yeah. But again, this is the comic books. Ends up drinking this super soldier serum and it was unstable. And it basically gave him, theoretically, the power of a thousand exploding suns, right? You know, that's kind of how much power he has. And he's super ultra powerful. And, you know, he's kind of like
Superman,
a little bit of the Marvel version of Superman. Super strong, can fly, invulnerable, all the things you would imagine. Now, I do think they go there in this many, many, many years down the road after the Sentry character was introduced. They had this alternate personality of the Sentry called the Void that was kind of like the evil version of his brain that took over, and he became this really evil version of the Sentry. I do believe we see the Void in the movie. I do believe he ends up turning into the Void at some point in time. And that's what the Thunderbolts need to defeat ultimately in the movie. And I do think he gets locked up in, you know, in the raft and we never see him again.
Right.
I think it's going to be a one and done, but
interesting.
I don't think they break him out for Secret Wars or anything like that. I think he's a one and done for that movie.
Interesting.
But I think the Thunderbolts characters that are in that movie, we will see again. I think we will see them in Doomsday. I think we will see them in Secret Wars. You know, look, Florence Pugh is,
she's the greatest.
She's incredibly hot in Hollywood right now. I mean, she's obviously been, you know, nominated for Oscars. She's just a really good actress.
Yeah.
Been in a lot of great movies, and she can lead that movie. And I think between her and Sebastian Stan, and again, I think the cast is really good. I'm looking forward to that movie.
Me too.
A lot.
I think it's going to do blockbusters. I'm hoping. I think if they get Sentry right, they're going to pull in all the fanboys. They're going to pull in us, people like us.
I think where you're going is we're going to see the Sentry in the Super Bowl.
I hope so. I think
that's the one we know.
We know
he's in the movie.
Yeah.
We've seen Bob in the trailer so far.
He's on the fucking poster.
But we haven't seen the Sentry character yet. So
we've seen a clip of him taking bullets. So we know he's somewhat of I think they got to show Sentry. So again, I think it'll pull in all the fanboys and all the comic book nerds like us into the theater. And then I think
would you jump up out of your chair and scream?
Not like I did with the Red Hulk. Oh man, I went nuts at Comic-Con when they showed a clip and they showed the Red Hulk, and I saw how savage he was. In that clip, I went nuts. I was so excited for this movie. Not so much anymore. But I think
lot of the good old days. Yeah, back in July.
Yeah, I think Florence Pugh and Sebastian Stan and the other cast members will pull in the novice
David Harbour. I mean,
they're going to pull in the novice fans. Yeah. He'll pull in all the Stranger Things fans. Right. I think they're going to pull in a lot of novice fans that usually aren't into comic book movies. Will come see that because of those casts, and then Sentry will be a big pull for the comic book.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, we are seeing that movie next week, and we will be back here for our review for sure.
Fingers crossed.
I think
I hope it's good.
If I already have, I think my expectations for this movie are already lower than they would be for most Marvel movies. And so if it's better than my expectations are right now, I think I'll be pleased. If it's bad, I'm gonna be really, really,
Ooh.
really disappointed. And you know what? As many reshoots as they've had, as much money as they've dumped into this, I don't know how it can be bad. I think at worst, it'll be
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
It'll be like Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I was like, oh, that was okay.
Yeah.
Wasn't great, but that was okay. If that's what I walk out of the theater like, okay,
The trailers have been fire though, man.
yeah.
The trailers, them flying
Unfortunately,
scenes, the flying scenes and stuff.
unfortunately, we've been through this before,
I know.
Titanium, where the best parts of the movie are shown in the trailers,
Yeah.
and the dialogue in between is terrible.
Uh,
I don't know. We'll see. Again, I wanted to harken back on this when we talked about the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man stuff. There was a shift at Marvel about a year and a half ago when Bob Iger came back and Bob Chapek left. And there was a way that Marvel was doing things, and a lot of it was a lot of push for diversity and elevating B-level characters and all kinds of other things, and it wasn't working. And
not
Disney
not
Plus,
just not just there that what we see, but from a director's
yeah,
standpoint, there was a lot of all that was
yeah.
in the writers'
And it wasn't
rooms.
just Marvel, it was Star Wars, it was a lot of
Everything,
things.
yeah.
And
The writers' room also was affected by
yeah,
that.
yeah. And so
And when you get writers saying, I don't read comic books, or I've never seen a comic book about this character, and they're writing a
yeah,
show about the character,
right.
that's that's a red
Bad.
flag.
Bad.
Yeah.
So anyway, Disney Plus was losing money. The movies were losing money. They weren't that we had a bunch of box office, what I would call flops. I mean, they basically were okay movies. Nothing, I mean, they just weren't good movies.
And this was part of that
Yeah, and they
old regime.
basically had to come to Jesus. Bob Iger came back, said, look, we're going to focus on A-level characters, A-list characters that people want to see. We're going to focus our projects and movies around those characters, and then we're going to move forward with a new vision and we saw what happened with Daredevil Born Again. They had an original vision for the show that was under the old leadership. The new leadership came in and said, nope, that ain't going to fly, and they had to
Scrapped
redo
it.
the whole thing.
Yeah.
They basically started from scratch and
Yeah.
redid everything. But there are a lot of leftover projects.
Yeah.
And the leftover projects, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, leftover project. Ironheart coming out later this year, leftover project. Wonder Man coming out later this year, leftover project. Agatha All Along was a leftover project. Captain America, Brave New World
Yeah.
was a leftover project. Now, Thunderbolts was not. Fantastic Four is not. Daredevil Born Again is not. So I would say my hopes for those other projects that were started after the new regime came back and started things differently, I have higher hopes for. The ones that are kind of leftovers, my expectations are all a lot
Agree.
lower.
Yeah, I get it.
Right. Now, again, the other projects I talked about, Ironheart, Wonder Man, all those, if they're entertaining, I'll be happy. But I'm not like, oh my God, we got to get home tonight and watch Wonder Man.
Yeah. No. No.
Right. All right. Well, that was our first news item. Like we said, this one's going to be a short one. So another story came out that Marvel is already starting the casting search for the new version of the X-Men. We again have been led to believe that after the Russo brothers are done with the Secret Wars kind of storyline, that they're going to reboot the MCU, that X-Men is going to be one of the first projects they start with after Secret Wars, that we're going to get like kind of a mutant saga. They're going to be focusing a lot on the mutants. And we understand there's going to be a new team of X-Men. And they're already casting for those roles. And the first two roles they're casting are Gambit and Kitty Pryde. So the Gambit casting is interesting in that, as successful and popular as Channing Tatum was as Gambit and Deadpool and Wolverine, a lot of people wanted him to come back as that character in the future of the MCU in the X-Men films. I think he's not going to do that for several reasons. One, primarily because he is skewing older at this point in time in his life. I do think we'll see him. I hope we see him in like Secret Wars. That would be awesome, by the way. But I do think when they reboot the X-Men, it's going to be a much younger. Now, when Gambit came to the X-Men, he was older already. So if he's in his early 30s and the rest of the X-Men are in their early 20s, that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But the fact that these two characters are ones now, they're not the original 5 X-Men, obviously, um, makes me believe that they're going to be basing the X-Men movie on a later storyline in the comic books than the kind of the origin of the
I think
X-Men.
they're over origin
I
stories.
think
I
so
think
too.
everybody they need to move
They
forward
people are
away
like,
from
we know
origin
who
stories.
these characters are.
Yeah,
We've seen movies already.
right.
We've seen the X-Men 97
Put them in a
cartoon.
situation, compelling stories.
Right.
That's what we
It's
want.
just write good stories with
Bring
good
them in
characters.
sideways. I mean, we've said this before. You don't need to have a standalone X-Men movie. Bring them in sideways through other movies and then get into a
Well,
standalone.
again, we've only seen Gambit twice in the movies before. Taylor Kitsch played the character in X-Men Wolverine Origins, that movie. Limited view of Gambit and the character, not too much screen time. It was a Wolverine movie, albeit. And then obviously we saw it in X-Men in Deadpool and Wolverine and what Channing Tatum did. But I think this character has legs. I think it's a very popular character, hugely popular on the X-Men 97
Yeah,
cartoon, the original X-Men animated series.
yeah.
Um, I think having that character in the team would be awesome. And the kind of weird relationship that that he has with Rogue is also great that we saw in the cartoons. But
But a
also,
younger cast would probably
yeah,
be best.
Kitty Pryde was barely in the first run of the X-Men films, was in Days of Future Past, but not really. Kitty Pryde, sort of, maybe a little bit, just in the beginning of the movie. But we really haven't explored that character a lot. A lot of people are saying if you're going to do Kitty Pryde, you got to do Lockheed. So Lockheed is her pet dragon. So that would be awesome. Look, I'm all for it. Like, if your team of X-Men were, you know, popular characters like Gambit, Storm, Wolverine, Kitty Pryde,
Wait, in the New Mutants, what character was that?
who?
That Anna Taylor-Joy played.
Oh, she was Magic, which
Oh,
is Peter Rasputin, um, um, Colossus's little sister.
okay.
So that's Magic. But yeah, look, grab new characters or familiar ones and make a great movie. I'm all for it.
I just think there's a couple of castings they can't get wrong. One of which is whoever, if they do, it doesn't sound like they're going to, but Wolverine, whoever they cast as the new Wolverine,
Yeah,
can't get that wrong.
So that's the other rumor. Is the other rumor that came out is that Hugh Jackman is about to sign another long-term contract with Marvel to play Wolverine for until he's 90. Until he's 90. But he is in negotiations at the moment on another long-term deal with Marvel to stay Wolverine. We all believe wholeheartedly that I'm not sure if we'll see him in Doomsday, maybe not.
But definitely
Secret Wars for sure.
Yeah.
So that one is a given, but
I think
does he
after
come
Secret
back and
Wars,
play Wolverine?
I don't think so. I don't. I mean, I think it's time to move on.
I
think it's
would
time
think
to.
so.
I would too. He's so popular, but I get it's time to move on. Recast somebody younger so that you have
I
that
know.
whole team moving forward younger. Another casting that they can't get wrong is Storm. I think whoever they cast as Storm, they have to get that right. Those two characters, for me, Cyclops can turn into a superstar. They can get a kind of an unknown to play Cyclops, even though it's a huge character, and he will turn into a very popular actor wherever that goes. But two that I feel they cannot get wrong is Wolverine and Storm.
We'll see.
So we'll see.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
So great story that came out this past week. There were, and I know you had a nice little Twitter conversation about this one. So there was a story that came out that Kevin Feige was considering bringing Jonathan Majors back. So again, the whole Jonathan Majors saga, he was arrested and convicted of domestic violence against his girlfriend. He was fired by Marvel. He was, played Kang the Conqueror in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and ultimately in Loki season 2. Played Victor Timely, was in both of those, but was fired by Marvel. They decided instead of doing Avengers Kang Dynasty, they were going to pivot to Avengers Doomsday, which made a lot of sense for a lot of different reasons, as we've discussed many times on this show. But there's rumors now that they were going to bring Kang back.
Mhm.
They're going to bring Jonathan Majors back.
Yeah.
Now that he's kind of, hey, it's been a little while. We can bring him back now. Everything's okay. So that came out, and I don't even want to know what your Twitter conversations were about.
No, I basically said that, Jonathan Majors, everybody deserves a second chance.
Sure.
I think he's a great actor. He has a tremendous presence on screen. I think he absolutely deserves a second chance. And I just don't think they should go backwards and reintroduce.
Your point was, I read your comments. Your point was the Kang storyline
Mhm.
did not resonate with the audience. The Kang character did not resonate with the audience.
Did not.
Wasn't compelling enough. Was not the big bad that everybody needed.
Ant-Man kicked his ass. Okay.
Right.
Go ahead.
So that was your point in your
Right.
Twitter conversation.
I'd say move forward. I think Doctor Doom is very complex and obviously more popular and more well known
And easier to understand.
way easier to understand, and it would resonate with the novice fans, which you need in the box office for
Right.
box office numbers.
Right.
I don't care how you feel about this. We're passionate as anybody about these characters, but the fact that studios are a business, this is a fact, and they're in business to turn a profit. And if they can't get the novice fans in the seats like they did for Deadpool and Wolverine, they can't get them in the seats for these shows. It's dead on arrival.
Well, and you and I have said this, ad nauseum. Great villains make great comic book movies.
Yep.
And Kang was not a great villain. One of the reasons why the Ant-Man and Wasp Quantumania movie did not do well is that he was not compelling enough as a villain.
Yeah.
And if you were going to then take him in that movie and move him forward as the big bad for future movies, it just didn't make sense. And it was a hard character to understand. There's more than one of them. There's a lot of them, and they're from different universes. I mean, how's this supposed to work? So that it just didn't resonate with anybody.
We grew up reading the comics, so we kind of follow along with the multiverse and the Council of Kangs. We understand where all that came from and that he's the son of Reed
but only
Richards
the
and-
nerds are going to get it.
Oh, right, but you have to appeal to a larger audience, and Kang just did not do that.
Right.
And I've always felt that way. Great character, love the character, but move forward. Go with Doctor Doom. Easier for the novice fans to understand.
Do like what you did with Guardians of the Galaxy 3 with the High Evolutionary. Be a one and done villain. You know, you're in your movie, you're done, you're finished.
Yeah.
So when we heard this, we were like, okay, why would they be bringing him back and for what purpose? And Kevin Feige was theoretically wanted to tie up his storyline. Well, then TMZ came out literally like yesterday and said, no. This ain't happening. Jonathan Majors and his entire team have said, we're not in any conversations with Marvel about anything. This is not happening. I mean, multiple sources across. This is not something that's going to happen. So as much as it became a story quickly, it became a non-story.
Died on the vine.
Which is great.
Yeah.
You and I were talking about this or alluding to it a little bit earlier. Invincible season 3 premieres tomorrow on Amazon Prime. And for those of you out there, and I've spoken to many of you about this, that have not watched Invincible before, as I've always said, just watch the first episode. And it may start off a little bit slower than you like. And you may be like, where is this show going? By the end of the first episode, you'll know exactly where this show is going and you'll be hooked.
Yeah, it's good.
That's what I'll tell you. Season 3 comes out tomorrow. You and I are very excited for this. Again, just great storytelling, great characters, great writing. Again, pulling directly from the source material, which is awesome as well. So go check this out.
After Into the Spider-Verse, it is my favorite animated show.
Yeah, it's by far. It's just, again, whether you like the animation style or not, or whether you think it's well, I guess drawn. Who cares? The characters are so good, and the voice acting is great. The voice actors in this are some of the best, so
good.
You're gonna love it. So go check that out. You sent me this week, and I had to chuckle. So Kraven the Hunter, Sony, theoretically, Sony's last entry into their attempts to build the Spider-Verse without Spider-Man.
Wait, let me preface this. For those that asked me about why Sony stopped creating their Spider-Verse, this is the reason. Go ahead.
Kraven the Hunter ended its box office run, so it's no longer in theaters. And those of you that are really disappointed, I'm sure we'll get over it. It ended with a total gross of 59 million
Ooh.
worldwide, not just domestically, worldwide 59 million, which makes it one of the lowest grossing comic book movies of all time.
Behind the Marvels. Wow.
Well, that's hard to believe. But I mean, I think we could go back in time and look at like what the original run of the Fantastic Four did.
2015
Or that one too. No, the original one.
Ooh,
Back and calculate for inflation, it wouldn't even come close.
not even close.
Yeah, that look, people, I love, Anthony Taylor Johnson. I think he's a good actor. I think he played the character very well. The direction they chose to take with the character had a big problem with.
Huge.
There were some good scenes in the movie that we talked about when we reviewed it. I'm so glad it's over because look, for this movie to bomb as much as it did, it just goes to show you that they were not on the right track.
No.
And they could have made a good Kraven the Hunter movie. They could have had they done things very
I
differently.
don't know why they're so afraid of making a true villain film. I don't understand it. Like, do they not feel like people would not go to a show? Because, I mean, look at the Joker, the first one, not the second. The first one, that was a true villain origin story, in a different kind of else world.
Look at the Penguin
Huge.
on the Penguin show on
words. I mean, that's the type of writing, and that's the type of villain that people want.
Had they done that with Morbius, and had they done that with Kraven, I think they would have been onto something.
I agree.
And they would have basically established how bad these characters are. And then when they started hunting and fighting against, Spider-Man, you would understand where they're coming from.
Right.
But no, we got to make them
lovable, likable.
Likable. Yeah.
The Dwayne Johnson phenomenon,
my God.
the Black Adam phenomenon.
All right. Well, that's over, thankfully, and no notice or understanding of where Sony's going in the future with these characters. I have a feeling that we're going to hear some announcements about these characters probably right around the Comic-Con time.
Yeah.
I would think.
I think
because they're not going to sit on them, so they're going to do something.
Yeah.
Again, we're waiting for the announcement of the next
4.
Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
Which we know is in pre-production already. So hopefully we'll get some kind of announcement here sometime.
Yeah, that information about that movie will start to leak, and we'll
because they need to start filming this year.
Yeah.
So that is definitely going to happen.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get to our topic of the week, brought to us by our friends over at Studio GG Studios.
Home of the man band, corn on the top.
Thanks for your help with everything, Studio G. And please go check them out on their YouTube page. We always link it at the bottom of our show notes here. We got a new trailer this week.
We did?
On Tuesday.
What was it?
Teaser trailer for the new Fantastic Four movie. So let's kind of go. We kind of
not a full trailer. It definitely was
teaser.
A teaser.
We got some indications last week that we were hoping that a trailer was going to drop for the Super Bowl, and then rumors started coming out that it was probably going to come out before the Super Bowl.
Wow.
We're like, oh, okay, that'd be interesting. And then we found
volumes of the popularity of the Super Bowl.
Right. And then we found out, well, it's going to be dropping on Tuesday. And the first story was it was going to be dropping on Tuesday in Good Morning America. And we're like, oh, it's going to be on first thing in the morning. And then they're like, yeah, it's not going to premiere Good Morning America. They're going to actually have a trailer launch show event. And then they're going to go on Good Morning America, which they ended up doing. So Tuesday morning, I did tune in to this launch event.
Son of a bitches.
This was probably one of the worst marketing events, I'm just saying logistically, that I've ever seen from Marvel, and I don't know who was in charge of it.
First, they put it off an hour with some footage about a rocket. It was very similar to a countdown for a rocket launch.
So you went online.
I thought it was creative.
You went online and you went on the Marvel YouTube page, and they had
it was on X and other.
Yeah, it was everywhere. It was on Instagram and everything else live. You go on there and literally you would tune in. I think it was like 8 o'clock or something like that.
7
a.m. when it started.
Standard. Yeah.
And you basically sat there and watched all this nonsense for like an hour.
Yes.
And then eventually it came on at 8. And the first thing I told
But
you,
it wasn't the trailer, it was
no,
this event.
event. So I told you this as I was watching it. I don't know who this lady is, but the lady they had running this launch event, she was so bad. She could not form a sentence,
Yeah.
like literally could not. If you go back and watch it, if you don't believe me, go back and watch it. It's on YouTube.
It was almost like she was so nervous.
It might have been nerves,
Yeah,
but
nervous
she
or
thrust into this thing and then she like,
unscripted. You could see she was dropping like launch or ignite or
so somebody
catapult.
said, "Hey, make sure you use these words
Right,
when
right.
you're talking." And then she couldn't use them correctly in the right tense or the right context.
Yeah,
It was
it was
so
awful.
bad.
It was
And
awful.
then they brought the cast out and they introduced him and then she
Pedro
went
Pascal looked like a clown.
right. Oh, Vanessa Kirby did not look like a clown.
Dude, well, we'll get into that. We'll get into that smoke
She
show.
was dressed up pretty nice. But then she goes down and starts asking them questions. Again, the way she asked the questions and the way she formed the questions was so awkward.
Yeah.
And then she ends up asking them all questions and just things that make people cringe. Like, she asked Eben Moss-Bacharach, what was it like the first time you got to utter the words, "It's clobbering time"? And he looks at her and he's like, I don't know. How about we all just like turn to the person next to us and whisper in their ear, "It's clobbering time. Let's all do it." And I was like, "Oh my God, this is so
awkward.
cringy."
Yeah.
And then she goes back and asks Pedro Pascal another question. He's like, "You already asked me a question." And they're like, "Can we just get to the trailer?"
Yeah. Like, why would you spoil the fact that he says that in the movie? It's such an impactful statement that if he had said it without anybody knowing he was gonna say it,
Yeah.
and it just came up, I think it would be more impactful, but it was just weird.
So they eventually press this big fake button and they launch the trailer. We got to see the trailer. Um, there was a lot in the trailer, and you and I talked about it the night before. We thought that it was going to be one or two things. It was going to be the exact same trailer that we saw at Comic-Con that had not been officially released to the public, but
Right.
had leaked out to the public. But
Total clips and
yeah,
not a lot.
but it had not been released. We're like, oh, if it's that, but HD version with a little bit more, great.
Yeah.
But the other thing was that, hey, it could be completely new teaser
It was,
trailer,
it
and it
was.
was completely new footage.
Completely. Yeah.
Um, we get to see the Baxter
First of all,
building.
did you like it?
I did. I'm a little bit, and this is kind of what I'm going to get into. I was a little bit put off by what we didn't see as much as excited by what we did see.
Mhm.
So we got to see the Baxter building.
Cool.
Right. So they showed the Baxter building. They were inside they're giving somebody a tour of the Baxter building. And Reed Richards is saying, "We're here every night, 7 o'clock for dinner as a family. That's what we do." And then you get this scene with the Thing. So we got to see the Thing in full costume with CGI.
Okay, wait. I have to interrupt you. I'm still giddy from this.
This was awesome.
Just the fact, first of all, the whole trailer for me hit.
Yeah.
I thought it was fire.
The period piece and everything else.
From the retro vibe to the score and the music,
Yep.
I thought everything connected the dots for me, and I'm still giddy about the whole teaser.
Yeah.
That's how much I liked it. I would put it up there with, I think it surpassed my love for the Superman trailer. This actually jumped ahead of my excitement level now for this movie. And Superman is one of my most anticipated movies because there's so much riding on it. But this trailer or this teaser, absolutely adore it.
Yeah. And I think the fact that they decided to go with a period movie, that this occurs in an alternate universe in the
alternate universe.
1960s.
A lot of people are asking me that. It was like, well, where are the Avengers? What is it? I said, this is an alternate universe. It's not the 616 Earth that everything happens in.
And rumors are, which we don't know, but there are people out there that have, made inferences to the fact that when they launch off into space the first time, it's in the 1960s in our universe. They launch off into space in a rocket, end up getting hit with the cosmic rays and get their powers, and it also jumps them to another universe. So they end up landing back on Earth in a different universe. Nobody knows who they are. So these are people that came from outer space on a rocket ship and landed and have all these superpowers that they didn't even know they had at the time. They just got back and they're not home anymore.
Got it.
And that the whole movie is them trying to figure out a way to get back home. So again, this is all just rumor and conjecture. And this is how they get back to our universe eventually and all these other
Just
things.
works, man.
Yeah,
It
but the
just
60s
works.
period stuff was really cool.
The retro vibe is really cool.
And, they're in the Baxter building and they've got these old, so Reed Richards, being the smartest man in the world, has invented all these things. Like we see the hover car, but we don't see it hover. We see the car, but we know it hovers eventually. But we see the car, we see the thing, full costume, talking. That was great. Talking with Herbie.
Comic book accurate.
Talking with Herbie to the
Comic book accurate.
Right. And he's like, talking about, I'm going to add a little garlic to the sauce. It's pretty good, but I'm going to
give it a little zip.
A little zip. Yeah. Right.
So great.
We do see him, Reed Richards, talking about the family. They are a family of four that, the last time we went, so it sounds like they're going back up into space for some other reason.
Yeah.
But he says the last time we went up in space, that was before you were able to turn invisible, and the thing wasn't Ben wasn't a rock, and Johnny
didn't catch fire.
And then you got to see Johnny Storm jump off a ledge, turn into fire. Yeah, the flying was great.
Yeah,
really cool. Here's what I found very interesting: the things that I still am a little concerned about.
Keep in mind, this is just a teaser.
Yeah. Right. Man, maybe there's reasons behind this. Yeah. We haven't seen Reed's powers at all.
None. Nope.
Didn't see him stretch. Didn't see him do anything. So we've seen Johnny's powers. We've seen the Thing, obviously, in his costume. And we've seen Sue. We got a little bit in this trailer of her turning invisible and using her force fields a little bit. So we got to see a little bit of that. Haven't seen Reed's at all.
Nope.
We have seen zero dialogue from Johnny.
Right.
Zero. And that's one of the concerns.
Except for we say when she busts in and he's wearing his space helmet in his room and he's like laying upside down like a teenager would. And he's like, hey, what's up? That's about all we've heard.
So I'm wondering how they're going to be portraying this version of Johnny Storm.
Okay.
And in the teaser that we saw at Comic-Con, you kind of got to see a little bit of him, and he didn't say much in that trailer either. But, his sister said, oh, and ladies, he's definitely single, right? Or whatever. And, he's kind of looking embarrassed. Look, the way Chris Evans played Johnny Storm in the first iteration
arrogant
is Johnny Storm.
Yeah.
Brash, arrogant, cocky as hell, thinks he's the hottest thing in the world. Right. All the girls want him.
Right.
It doesn't seem like that's the way they're going to portray this version of Johnny Storm at all. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I'm waiting to hear some of the dialogue. And I don't know if Joseph Quinn, I don't know if he can pull that off. And maybe that's why they chose not to do that.
Right.
Because we saw him in the Gladiator 2 movie and he was good, but I don't know if he can pull off the cocky, arrogant,
that'll be interesting. Yeah.
Guy. So maybe it's going to be a more subdued version of Johnny Storm. I don't know. So that's one thing I noticed. No dialogue from him.
Yeah.
None of Reed's powers. We didn't see the Silver Surfer,
right?
Which we know is in this movie.
Yeah.
Theoretically, the Shallabal version of the Silver Surfer. We did get the back silhouette of Galactus as it's walking through New York Harbor. Shadow comes over top of the Statue of Liberty. But we didn't see the front or the face of Galactus or hear the voice, right? We got like a 2-second clip of John Malkovich in a long gray beard, but we have no idea who he's playing, although there's theories out there.
Yeah, the Russian Red Ghost.
Or he could be playing Mole Man, which is the other theory.
Well, one of the characters, one of the guys, one of the actors that we know that people assumed was going to be Herbie's voice, he could be Mole Man. So we don't know.
We don't know what John, but we just saw John Malkovich in a long gray beard, and we were like, you just saw his face, and that was it.
And you think he's a Russian scientist that tries to emulate and get the powers of the Fantastic Fours. It's I guess the comic book is a little.
So we didn't see Silver Surfer. We didn't see Franklin Richards, which we believe is going to be in this movie.
Rumored to be in the room.
Well, there are behind the scenes photographs of the set of Sue holding a baby.
Mhm.
And so we believe they do have a child, and that this child is Franklin Richards, and that there's theories that that's the reason Galactus comes to Earth, because it can sense Franklin Richards, who is one of the most powerful characters ever created by Marvel.
Mhm.
So we didn't see Franklin, and we saw nothing of Doom. And I don't think, number one, we don't know if Doom is going to be in this movie at all. Robert Downey Jr.'s version of Doctor Doom, if he's going to be in the movie at all, and if he is going to be in the movie,
And credit scene?
if it's in the movie or an end credit scene, we don't know any of that.
Correct.
But I think there's no way they show him to us before the movie comes out at all.
Oh,
That's going to be the big
no.
surprise.
I don't even think they should show us Franklin until the movie comes
Right.
out. I think all of that should be kept hidden. One of the greatest things for us seeing that movie when we saw it, Deadpool Wolverine,
We knew nothing.
we knew nothing.
It was great.
We knew none of
Yeah.
the cameos. We tried to stay.
Oh,
We
it was
went dark,
awesome. It was
and
awesome.
it was so much better
Right.
when you don't know and
Yeah.
see or hear the
Agreed.
leaks. So
And
much
we were
better.
so fortunate to have seen it literally the night it came out
Yeah.
at Comic-Con. I mean,
With
because
600 other fans.
because the next morning, all everybody would have been talking about was the movie. And what they
Everything
saw.
online, everything
Oh,
I
yeah.
saw online was spoilers, spoilers,
Yeah,
spoilers. And
yeah.
I was like, oh God, I'm so glad I saw that.
Yeah.
It was so much more impactful
Yeah.
so I'm hoping that the Fantastic Four has this, but I'm telling you right now, that teaser was amazing.
It
for
was
me.
good.
That was great.
It was exactly what it needed to be. It was and that's why I would call it a teaser. It wasn't a full trailer.
Nope.
I think we will get a full trailer probably with the Thunderbolts movie. We'll probably get a
Yeah,
full
I agree.
trailer maybe
Yeah.
a week before that movie comes out in May. We'll get a full trailer for Fantastic Four, but this was a teaser. This was
Great.
exactly just whet our appetite, get us excited about it, make people ask a lot of questions. Why is it in the 60s?
Right.
Where are they? Who are these people? How come they're not in the MCU?
Right.
These are all the things that people want to know.
Yeah. And that builds excitement and intrigue and water cooler talk or whatever it may be.
Right.
I mean,
Or Tony's basement talk.
oh man, so good. I'm telling you right now, I'm so excited for this movie after that teaser. It had all the right
The
components.
thing looked great.
It pushed all my buttons.
You see that scene where he's running down the street?
Oh. And everybody's like, he's so small. I'm like, yeah, he's not 7'9" like the Hulk should be.
No.
You know,
The Thing is a tiny powerhouse.
yes.
Right.
And comic book accurate. The unibrow, I was
It
in
was
love with
great.
It was
Yeah,
so
it was
great.
It was great.
The unibrow and the way he looked, and people were like, no, Michael Chiklis was better. I was like, no, he wasn't. This is the way.
Well, and Michael Chiklis wore prosthetics, so his suit was all makeup, or basically
like a rubber
suit over top of him, and he did very well with it. But this is all CGI, like they do with the Hulk, and it looked pretty good.
Man, I don't know. I thought it was fantastic. I'm still giddy about it. I can't wait for this movie.
They got to get it right. This is, again, that we've talked about Superman.
So
for
far,
DC.
it looks like a home run. So far, I think they're
If they're
right
gonna-
on track.
Look, they screwed up in 2015 with Fantastic Four. Fox did, and when Marvel got the rights to these characters, Feige was like, "This is Marvel's first family.
We can't
We
get it wrong."
have to get it right,
Right.
and they're going to play a big role in the MCU moving forward. This is not their last movie; it's their first movie, and we got to get them right, and we got to get people to love these characters and want to see them again because they're going to be around."
Pedro Pascal, when
He's
they
so good.
cast him, I was like, I don't think it. I don't. He doesn't look like the part. I don't. He's a great actor. He's super hot right now in almost everything that's popular. I wasn't a big fan of that casting, and seeing him, I'm starting to like believe a little bit. I'm starting
I
to
like
fall
him
in
so
line.
much. He's
He
so
dressed
likable.
like a clown. I
He
mean,
did.
what was that? And then when they clip to him during one of the previews of the theater in the event, he was like all over Vanessa Kirby, like in a weird kind of I don't know,
Creepy way.
I was like, what is he doing? He's just a really odd bird for me, but I'm starting to grow into believing that he could be Mr. Fantastic and will be.
Right.
So I'm loving that. And let's talk about Vanessa Kirby for a minute. People,
That
this
dress
woman,
she was wearing
she
was
is a smoke show. She is so sexy and so hot, and the costume and their costumes are perfect. I think
yeah,
they're
they're
phenomenal.
great.
I think it's really going to be a huge home run for Marvel, which they will need. Hopefully, hopefully Captain America does good, not great, but good,
Well enough, right?
well enough to sustain,
Yeah.
sustain them for, and at least until the Fantastic Four comes out. But
Yeah.
yeah,
All right.
excellent. All right, Professor. Well, let's of course ring the bell. School is over.
Well, that's it for us this week. We're back next week for more Super Talk. To get in touch with us on social media, hit us up via email, supertalkpodcast@outlook.com or at supertalkpod on Twitter. Until then, stay super, everyone.
Corner on the top, the man.